Every time you make a call, send a voice note, or FaceTime across the globe, you're using an invention that reshaped human connection forever. But what if I told you the man who actually invented the telephone never got credit? In fact, he died poor, unknown, while another man became famous using his idea. This is the story of Antonio Meucci, the forgotten genius behind one of the most powerful inventions in history. Antonio Meucci was born in Florence, Italy in 1808. A talented mechanic and inventor, he studied engineering at the Florence Academy of Fine Arts. But life had other plans. At just 15, he dropped out, not for lack of skill, but because he needed to work. He eventually landed a job at the famous Teatro della Pergola as a stage technician. And it was here, backstage with wires and echoes, that the seeds of a revolutionary idea were planted. Meucci once helped improve the theater's acoustics using a speaking tube system, a primitive sound transmission method that sparked his interest in voice communication over distance. In 1835, Meucci left Italy for Havana, Cuba, lured by a prestigious role at the Gran Teatro de Tacon. There, he wasn't just designing stage systems, he was experimenting with electricity and accidentally stumbled on a discovery that would change the world. Sound could travel through wire. Later in Staten Island, New York, Meucci's wife became severely ill and bedridden. Communication between her room and his workshop was difficult. Out of necessity, Meucci created a device that could carry his voice from one room to another. He called it the telettrofono. It wasn't just a prototype, it worked. Meucci built over 30 working models of his voice communication device between 1856 and 1870, using everything from copper wire to animal membranes. In 1871, Meucci submitted a caveat, a type of early patent application to the U.S. Patent Office. But he didn't have enough money for a full patent. He renewed his caveat for 2 years, then he couldn't afford the $10 renewal fee. Desperate, Meucci sent his prototype and notes to the Western Union Telegraph Company, hoping they'd help bring his invention to life. But after months of silence, he contacted them, only to be told his materials were lost. Just 5 years later, Alexander Graham Bell, who worked in a lab affiliated with Western Union, filed his telephone patent. Meucci later claimed that Bell's design was suspiciously similar to one of his own earlier models. Meucci spent years fighting Bell in court. In 1887, the U.S. government actually brought fraud charges against Bell, citing Meucci's caveat. The case was never fully resolved. Meucci died in 1889, penniless, forgotten, and denied the recognition he deserved. In 2002, over a century later, the U.S. House of Representatives passed Resolution 269, officially acknowledging that Antonio Meucci should be recognized for his contribution to the invention of the telephone. Imagine how different history might have been if Antonio Meucci had been celebrated in his time. Would Bell still be a household name? Would Italy, not the U.S., have led the telecom revolution? Meucci didn't just invent a device. He created the foundation for the digital age, decades before the internet, before cell towers, before smartphones. And yet, until recently, his name was left out of the story. In Italy, June 11th is sometimes observed as Antonio Meucci Day to honor his contributions to communication. Antonio Meucci may have died in obscurity, but every time a voice travels through a wire, across oceans, and through satellites, his legacy lives on. History doesn't always remember the right people, but we can. If you believe more untold stories like this deserve the spotlight, subscribe to Inventive Echoes. Let's bring the real inventors back into history. So next time you make a call, spare a thought for the forgotten genius who imagined it all. Not for fame, but for love, necessity, and connection.